Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We are still 46 days away from Election Day, but the wait is over for voters in 4 states. Early in-person voting begins today in South Dakota, Wyoming, Minnesota, and Virginia. CNN's Kristen Holmes is live at a polling location in Fairfax, Virginia. So how does the turnout look?
Allison, this is absolutely remarkable. I'm going to take a step out here so you can see the line. This is the first day, but it is clear that election season is in full swing. You can see hundreds of people here. And what you can't see is that actually inside the government building, it loops around and snakes. So they're trying to keep people socially distant in this line. We had someone just come out and say that the building itself is at capacity. So if people could please be patient. Now, I spoke to one woman, asked her why it is that she came out so early to vote. She said she knew that there was going to be a lot of interest in this election. She assumed there was going to be something like this many people. But this is remarkable. I spoke to a woman who has been working elections here in Virginia for 20 years, and she said she has never seen turnout like this on the first day. They knew there would be a little bit of a crowd, but as you can see, we are now walking yards away from that government building, and the line continues on. So just quickly here to recap, we are at the beginning of the election. We have 4 states that have now started in-person voting. You mentioned them. It is Minnesota, Wyoming, here in Virginia, and South Dakota. Several other states are sending out their absentee ballots. And this is really going to be a temperature check for Americans to see how they feel comfortable voting in this unprecedented election.
Hey, it's Friday, you bastards, and you can vote. You could vote in 4 states. In four. We're here. They're back. Voters, they're showing up. Fairfax County, that's what that reporter was covering over there. That's one of the most Democratic counties in all of Virginia, which is for lovers, you know. And they were all wearing masks. So, you know, you figure out who they showed up to vote for. This is good news. This is great news. The bad news. The bad news is we are at 198,055 dead Americans, quickly approaching 200,000 dead Americans. We will probably see a death count somewhere on Sunday or Monday that hits 200,000. And the President of the United States is about to speak about it. He ran to, a little teeny tiny town, which he couldn't even pronounce the name of, because it was in a teleprompter. And he couldn't pronounce it. And he asked somebody, please tell me the name, at the very end of a completely rambling, bizarro world, untruthful fire hose of lies. And why is he in Minnesota? Why? Why is he there? Well, because he's losing there. And they started to vote today. So this explains a lot of his activities. Meanwhile, what you have happening at the White House is really, really without precedent. No one has ever seen this many, let's call them disgruntled employees, because that's what Donald Trump calls them. We've never seen so many people be so disgruntled as they voluntarily quit on Donald Trump. See, Bill Barr yesterday, when he was complaining about the babies, the Montessori school babies that he has to work with inside the Justice Department, he was complaining about them being babies because they're quitting on him. See, because he's politicizing justice, the Justice Department. Right? He's doing all kinds of lunatic, fringy things for Donald Trump. The Flynn, throw out Flynn's guilty pleas. The Roger Stone 7 felonies. Jury found him guilty of 7 felonies in 7 seconds, and he wants, he wanted that thrown out. But barring that. Barr, actually, the president commuted Roger Stone. You had all the prosecutors on that case resign. You have the Durham report that these QAnon freaks are waiting for. and the prosecutor in Connecticut that Durham handpicked, that he requested help him. Please come and help me do this investigation into the investigation of Donald Trump. She quit. She resigned in protest because it's being politicized. And so Bill Barr ended up calling them babies. Well, what's happening in the Trump administration proper, the coronavirus task farce has been proven to be a task farce. Numerous people from the Department of Homeland Security have already quit. You know, Miles Taylor, who was the chief of staff over at the Department of Homeland Security, a dyed-in-the-wool, adorable young Republican. He quit. Dan Coates quit. You had Kelly and Mattis talk to Bob Woodward and say this man is unfit. This man has no concentration. He has absolutely no ability to absorb facts or to make difficult decisions. They've been called disgruntled. Miles Taylor, he's been called disgruntled. Rex Tillerson, who called Donald Trump early, an effing moron, he's been called disgruntled. Gary Cohn, who said, don't start some stupid trade war. You're going to kill you'll kill farmers. You'll kill dairy farmers. He has been called disgruntled. Michael Cohen has been called disgruntled and a liar. Mary Trump, Trump hardly knew her. That's his niece. Hardly knew her. And then Mary Trump's tapes had Trump's own sister, Mary Ann Trump, saying that he only cares about himself and that how stupid is he? How completely stupid is he? Right? And now we have another major figure in the Trump administration who was on the team to fight the pandemic, who was part of, in the room, the coronavirus task force. She was the deputy assistant to Mike Pence personally. And she was interviewed by the New Yorker, by Susan Glasser in the New Yorker. And Susan Glasser said, this woman, who's only like 43 years old, she was just at the peak of her career, she's terrified. She's literally terrified. Now, Miles Taylor, who worked over at DHS as the chief of staff, that's a very high position, as you know, because Flynn was, Kelly was chief of staff to the president. So chief of staff is like as high as you can go in an organization without being the director. Anyway, Miles Taylor was saying the same damn thing. He can't focus. He doesn't have the ability to understand problems. He only thinks about himself and all of this, right? And then he was asked, why don't people speak out? Why don't they speak out earlier? Why didn't they? He said, we probably should have, but, we get death threats. The president literally employs these people that follow him to do violence, to threaten families, to go to their houses, to threaten them with long guns, like Gretchen Whitmer, right? She was threatened to be beheaded by a white militia that showed up at the Capitol in Lansing, and, nothing was done. That was perfectly okay. It's as long as you're on Donald Trump's side. So people are afraid, and Susan Glasser actually interviewed Olivia Troy, who is the newest major figure on the task force, to come forward and say, Trump didn't give a damn about you. In fact, he hates his own supporters. He thinks they're disgusting people. And he thought COVID might be a good thing because then he didn't have to touch them. He didn't have to shake their hands, these disgusting people. Now, Hillary called them deplorable, and that was the shot heard around the world. But Donald Trump literally loathes his own supporters to the point where he's willing to kill them because they're just flotsam and jetsam in his world. He'll make more. You know what I mean? It's just so sick. I'm going to play you, she put out an ad, and just before this ad went live, I wish they would have left the music out of it. It just it takes the seriousness out of it, just saying Washington Post or whoever put this thing together. I guess it's Republicans, Republican Voters Against Trump is the group. Don't put music under this. Don't produce it up. Just let it be what it is. Anyway, I'm going to play you. When it was just about to go live, she told Susan Glasser, I'm terrified. I am so scared for my family. I'm so scared for me, but I have no choice. I have to do this because he's dangerous.
Clear. It's Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I'm Olivia Troy. I was Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to Vice President Pence and served as Vice President Pence's lead staff member on the COVID-19 response. You know, I'd been on the COVID task force from day one. I mean, the virus was very unpredictable at the beginning. There were a lot of unknowns, but towards the middle of February, we knew it wasn't a matter of if COVID would become a big pandemic here in the United States. It was a matter of when. But the president didn't want to hear that because his biggest concern was that we were in an election year and how is this going to affect what he considered to be his record of success. It was shocking to see the president saying that the virus was a hoax, saying that everything's okay when we know that it's not. The truth is, he doesn't actually care about anyone else but himself. He made a statement once that was very striking. I never forgot it because it pretty much defined who he was. When we were in a task force meeting, the president said, maybe this COVID thing is a good thing. I don't like shaking hands with people. I don't have to shake hands with these disgusting people. Those disgusting people are the same people that he claims to care about. These are the people still going to his rallies today who have complete faith in who he is. If the president had taken this virus seriously, or if he had actually made an effort to tell how serious it was, he would have slowed the virus spread. He would have saved lives. It was the opportunity and honor of a lifetime to be able to serve in the White House. I put my heart and soul into this role every single day. But at some point, I would come home at night, I would look myself in the mirror and say, are you really making a difference? Does it matter? Because no matter how hard you work and what you do, the president is going to do something that is detrimental to keeping Americans safe, which is why you signed up for this role. It was awful. It was terrifying. I have been a Republican for my entire life. I am a McCain Republican, I am a Bush Republican, and I am voting for Joe Biden because I truly believe we are at a time of constitutional crisis. At this point, it's country over party.
Wow. Wow. And so today, they're calling her a liar. Today, they're calling her disgruntled. Now, let me ask you something. As the worker bees in this economy, you know, that we are, have you ever worked in a place where everybody was disgruntled? Everybody? So the question is, what is disgruntling them? What is making them, how do you gruntle them when they're disgruntled? Obviously, the answer is it comes from the top. And when you're poorly led and decisions are made to benefit just the corner office or the top guy or the top and you are treated like flotsam and jetsam, or you're treated like a scum, or you're treated like disposable. If you've ever worked for people that sit there and say things like no one's indispensable and don't like that makes you disgruntled. That's what. Now this woman was the number 2 for Mike Pence. She was his Homeland Security, Counterterrorism, and Coronavirus advisor for 2 years. Now, that's a tough job for a woman because Mike Pence isn't allowed to be alone in a room with a woman, so she must know mommy. She must know him. This is just unbelievable. So here she is saying that they don't care about you. They didn't care about their own supporters, obviously. They didn't care about stopping COVID. He only cared about his reelection. In fact, when you drill down on this story, she not only was she in the room where things happened, she was she was inside the White House on Trump's team, and remember, Donald Trump gave the job of coronavirus task force leader to Mike Pence. So she was Mike Pence's right-hand guy. And she is saying, this is a quote from her, "I would not tell anyone I care about to take a vaccine that launches prior to the election. I would listen to the experts and the unity in pharma, and I would wait to make sure that this vaccine is safe and not a prop for the election." She says she's a lifelong Republican. In fact, her history is this. When she graduated college, she immediately went to work for the Republican National Committee, and she was working in Washington on 9/11, on the day that the Pentagon was, a plane flew into it. And she remembers that day so well. And she said, like anybody who was, affected and in a position to help, she wanted to devote her life to national security. That was the turning point for her. And so she went to work at the Pentagon, and then she was pulled into the coronavirus task force after she actually began working at the Department of Homeland Security, where Chad Wolf was the chief of staff. Wolf says he knows her. I'm sorry, not Chad Wolf. God help us. No, it's Chad. Chad did. Yesterday was a hearing on where we are, our national security. Chad Wolf, who is not Senate confirmed, but has been making decisions for this country as an unconfirmed appointee of Donald Trump's. He was asked to testify yesterday. He didn't. He was a no-show. He said, "No, I don't want to testify." So they subpoenaed him, and he defied the subpoena yesterday. So we got testimony from Chris Wray at the FBI about Russian interference and about where the biggest threats in America are coming from, and it turns out it's white supremacists. But we'll get there. But anyway, I invoked Chad Wolf. I met Miles Taylor. Miles Taylor was the chief of staff at Homeland Security, and so he obviously knew Elizabeth Troy.
I know Olivia Troy. I served with Olivia Troy, and I can tell you what she's not. And she's not a liar, and she's not a political hack. And I can tell you what she is. She's a patriot, she's an honest civil servant, and she is someone who had a front row seat to this White House and this president and the vice president's decision making. I think, look, there's no other way to cut it. This is damning for the White House. The White House keeps saying that there are anonymous sources who are saying false things about the president, and it's not true. And if you only really saw the president in action, you'd be so impressed with his leadership and his abilities. Look, Olivia Troy was one of those people, like you say, who was in the room where it happened, and she is providing that firsthand testimonial that Donald Trump, on the most important national security issue of his entire presidency, was totally checked out, to the extent that he was more focused on his reelection than he was on saving American lives. I think the White House is panicking here, John, and you can see it in their response. They've trotted out the vice president's national security advisor and the vice president himself to denigrate Olivia Troy. And I'll tell you this, John, both of those individuals, Vice President Pence and Keith Kellogg, his national security advisor, have personally thanked me for referring Olivia Troy to their office and said she was doing an incredible job as his Homeland Security advisor. But this is par for the course for this White House. They like someone until that person criticizes them, and then they literally pretend to barely have known the person and say, well, that was just a backbench staffer who had no impact. That's not who Olivia Troy is. She was a central player in the coronavirus task force.
And that's exactly what the president said. He said that he didn't know her, he never met her, and obviously in this this Republican Voters Against Trump presentation, she's sitting in the room with them. Do you know what I mean? She's sitting there. She's sitting with Mike Pence in so many photos that they flashed. He knows her. She's not a liar. She may be disgruntled because of the leadership.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Dr. Fauci knows her, too.
What can you do to reassure people who hear this and think that the person leading the response, President of the United States, doesn't care?
Chris, you're right. I really can't comment on that. I mean, I interacted with Olivia. I liked that she was a good person. She was important to the team as a staff person to the coronavirus task force. But, I don't know what to make about what just has come out recently. It would be very difficult for me to comment on that. The only thing I can say is that there are a lot of people who are looking carefully and are driven by the truth. And I think the American people should feel confidence in that a lot of people are looking at this very, very carefully to make sure that there's not political things that drive what should be scientific considerations. I'm one of them, and I have a number of colleagues that are with me.
Go with God, Dr. Fauci. Go with God, because so many people have come forward and said, and now we know that the CDC's own website was taken over by Trump sycophants, and bad information has been posted on that website with regard to, hey, let's not test asymptomatic people. That's been reversed now because it came to light through the whistleblowers that were saying CDC is rigging the information. They're changing the information on the website. Somebody is publishing things from the White House, not through the scientific review process, which is common practice for CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Almost everything up until now that's ever been posted on the CDC website had to go through a science review. And the things that have been posted lately on the CDC's website hasn't gone through a scientific review. And they've been to the point where Redfield had to reverse the coronavirus guidance that said people without symptoms should not be tested, because we know it's spread asymptomatically. Okay, so there's that. Anyway, this woman who was sitting next to Mike Pence in all these pictures, she said the mask issue was a critical one, and that if we would have gotten ahead on the mask issue, if Donald Trump just would have embraced it and said, this is your ticket to freedom, this is your ticket to not having to close the economy, which Donald Trump never did. Can we just, I shut it down. He keeps saying, you know, we had the best economy and I shut it down. He did not shut it down, okay? Donald Trump did nothing. The economy was never shut down by the federal government. We never had a national shutdown of any sort, ever. So let's just dispense of it. But if she said that if we could have had the president say, just wear a mask. Yeah, this is what happened in South Korea. They never shut down. They never had to shut down. She said that he just missed his opportunity to slow the spread. She said it was detrimental, and now it's become a politicized issue that still lingers today, and it's dangerous. And, she said that Mike Pence's staff, never mind Trump, but this is the thing, people go, well, if we got rid of Trump, through impeachment, we'd end up with Mike Pence. No, they both go. She said Mike Pence's staff have contempt for science, contempt for scientists. She said they have been cherry picking the data. This op-ed that Mike Pence wrote, I actually went and printed it out a couple of weeks ago, painting this rosy picture of, coronavirus is over, and Larry Kudlow getting on TV and talking about coronavirus as if it was over. She said that's because they marginalized all the science that was coming from the CDC throughout the 2 years that she was part of the Department of Homeland Security, let alone on the coronavirus task force. She said advisors are afraid to express positions contrary to the president because they feel public denunciation or that they would be cut out and he would never hear from the scientists at all. She said, quote, at some point, every single person on the task force has been thrown under the bus in one way or another. Instead of being focused on the task at hand, people are constantly wondering, what's going to drop next? When am I going to get reprimanded? When will I get cut out of meetings or cut out of a process because I spoke out? And she said this started right at the beginning when they failed to resolve the testing issue, that the World Health Organization was offering tests and they didn't want to take them. They didn't want people tested. She said Trump hardly ever attended any of the task force meetings, and that the only way he knows anything is he's briefed by Pence, who has a real robust disdain for science. She said he attended one meeting where he spoke for this is Trump. He attended one meeting where he spoke for 45 freaking minutes about Fox News. She said he's completely obsessed with Fox News. She said he spent more time about who he needed to call at Fox to yell at them and set them straight on the virus. She said every time they would make a meaningful decision about masks or about therapeutic, he would blindside them. She gives the examples of hydroxychloroquine, the plasma, the sunlight, the disinfectant. She's like, nobody, he just kept on blindsiding us. And anybody who wanted to, correct him, we were all talking about, what would happen to us. She said he is dangerous. Everyone knows he's dangerous. And that's why there's so much fear about speaking out about how dangerous he is. Because he is. Because he is.
I can't recall a time where you have so many people who weeks or months ago worked in an administration and have now come out and said before an election they will not vote for the man on top of that administration. Why is it happening here?
Well, John, I think it's a simple answer, and that is people are so affected by what they saw in Donald Trump's White House that they feel like they have no other choice than to risk their careers and their reputations and their personal lives to come out there and actually say what happened in this administration. Right now, America is trying to decide whether to retire or rehire Donald Trump, and these people feel like it's important to come out and say the truth. Just yesterday, our organization, Repair, which Olivia just joined, also announced another former Trump administration senior official that joined our ranks, Josh Venable, who was the chief of staff to Betsy DeVos at the Department of Education. And we'll have others. Olivia Troy, you need to think of her as a domino that's going to start a chain reaction of more people having the courage to speak up about this president, about this presidency, and about the direction of the country and some of the damage that's been done by Donald Trump and why we need to repair it. So I think this is just the beginning. I'm hopeful that you're going to see more folks at a senior level coming out and talking about this. But again, Olivia Troy is just the beginning, and hopefully more people will have the courage to speak up.
So over at DHS, Elizabeth Newman, another former senior Trump DHS official who started this group, you got 26 Republicans, including Anthony Scaramucci now. And we just added another member today, a guy named Josh Venable, who is the assistant. He was the former chief of staff to Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. He just resigned and joined Republicans voting against Trump. Why the Secretary of Education's chief of staff? Because Donald Trump is now saying we need re-education camps. No, I'm not kidding.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
President Putin was very, very strong. He even called me brilliant. Isn't that nice? Putin has much better leadership qualities than Obama.
I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
Kim Jong-un, he really has been very open, I think very honorable.
He's the boss. It's incredible. He wiped out the uncle. He wiped out this one, that one.
And then we fell in love. He wrote me beautiful letters.
Kim is a brutal dictator. He runs a police state, forced starvation, labor camps. He's assassinating members of his own family. How do you trust a killer like that?
I met him. I've spoken with him. I think that he really wants to do a great job for North Korea. His country does love him. They have a great fervor. I like the Saudis. They're very nice. I make a lot of money with them. They buy all sorts of my stuff, all kinds of toys from Trump. They pay me millions and hundreds of millions. And I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me. They spend 40 million, 50 million. We are with Saudi Arabia. We're staying with Saudi Arabia. We've become very good friends.
NATO is obsolete.
The European Union is a foe.
The European Union was set up to take advantage of the United States.
We're not negotiating with Canada right now. Germany is a disgrace. I know nothing.
Wow. Okay. So yesterday was the cherry on the cake of the dictator Trump's fantasy world that he wants to impose on the youth of America now. Okay. He literally went to the National Archives Museum yesterday. It was Constitution Day. And standing before the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the president decided that what he was going to pitch for anybody that would watch this low energy, really creepy pronouncement of re-educating our children, re-education schooling or camps for our kids. Because here's the actual deciding event that made him do this. You know, there was a Pulitzer Prize winning series of articles called 1619 that became critical history. It was by Nicole Hannah-Jones, and it was she received a Pulitzer Prize. And it tells the story of 400 years of bondage, 400 years of owning human beings in this country and what its legacy is, the consequences of slavery. And it's been incorporated into some curriculum in schools across the United States. And Donald Trump has a problem with teaching the real history of slavery. He has a really huge problem with it. And so yesterday he proposed that we get rid of the 1619 Project, that we get rid of teaching people about the consequences, the long-lasting consequences of human bondage in this country, and instead teach the history of white men, and only white men. No, I'm not kidding.
The narratives about America being pushed by the far left and being chanted in the streets bear a striking resemblance to the anti-American propaganda of our adversaries, because both groups want to see America weakened, derided, and totally diminished. Students in our universities are inundated with critical race theory. This is a Marxist doctrine, holding that America is a wicked and racist nation, that even young children are complicit in oppression, and that our entire society must be radically transformed. Critical race theory is being forced into our children's schools. It's being imposed into workplace trainings, and it's being deployed to rip apart friends, neighbors, and families. A perfect example of critical race theory was recently published by the Smithsonian Institution. This document alleged that concepts such as hard work, rational thinking, and the nuclear family and belief in God were not values that unite all Americans, but were instead aspects of whiteness. This is offensive and outrageous to Americans of every ethnicity, and it's especially harmful to children of minority backgrounds who should be uplifted, not disparaged. Teaching this horrible doctrine to our children is a form of child abuse in the truest sense of those words.
Okay, he's lying. The only thing that was ever published at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture that was ever in any way criticized or was somehow iffy was a graphic. There was one graphic, and it was removed. He's making all of this up. This is about critical race theory is the 1619 Project. That's what he refers to as critical race theory. And what it is it's teaching facts to children about every aspect of American history, the good, the bad, and the really freaking ugly, the fight for civil rights versus the people that did not want civil rights, the George Wallace period, the Jim Crow period, and the 1619 Project, which won a Pulitzer Prize and is considered to be one of the best openings we've ever had in this country to help people talk about racial identity and racism that's been embedded in this country since prior to its founding. He wants that struck down. He wants to teach kids white men's version of history without the civil rights movement, without the 1619 Project, without the legacy of slavery, without any real history, without Harriet Tubman, without anything. Without anything. He calls that child abuse. Here is what we want our kids to be taught, for any of you culty people out there. They're called facts. We want our children to be taught facts, truths, and critical thinking, and let them decide which is more important, civil rights, injustice, or white men's version of history. You know, you could teach them real facts and let them decide. That's what America is about. But oh no, oh hell no. This goes back to when Texas changed its school books, right? And they were teaching like the Flintstones, that human beings who were created by God coexisted with the dinosaurs to explain evolution to curious minds. I mean, this is just so antithetical to science. It's antithetical to understanding the globe, the world, the origins of the world, how the earth was formed, what actually caused the dinosaurs to disappear from the planet, ice ages, now global warming, climate science, racial disparities in this country, everything from not being able to drink out of this fountain or sit at this lunch counter, all the way back to being brought here on ships where people were thrown overboard because they died on these death boats. Okay, that they were auctioned, that they were owned, that they were raped, that they were tortured. What is he afraid of? What are Republicans so afraid of that is truthful? Why are they so desirous of ending a true thing being taught to our kids? It won't make them hate this country. It'll make them want to fix it. And they don't like fixing. They don't like change. I told you this a million times. Change frightens them. The status quo is all they know. It's what they want. They're invested in it heavily. And if anything ever changed, if justice ever became more equal, if the economy stopped promoting inequality, if banking became equal, if education became equal, they wouldn't stand a chance. That is what Paul Weyrich was trying to tell conservatives in 1980 when he started this ridiculous Heritage Foundation experiment. We don't want everybody to vote. We do better when people don't vote. We don't want a fearless leader. We don't want anybody that can think these things up. We just need a man barely lucid to sit up in a chair, hold a pen, and sign what we put in front of him to keep the status quo and to increase inequality in this country. It's a great tool for us to keep power.
Mary, how does the
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
What is he talking about? It's totally irrational. And look, this is all about one thing, the stock market. He doesn't want to see anything happen. It's all about his reelection. It should be about the American people, and they're in trouble. And if we don't do it, and by the way, his own CDC director contradicted him recently. He said, if in fact you just wore this mask, nothing else but this mask, you would save between now and January another 100,000 lives. And so we have to be honest with the American people. They're tough. They know, as Franklin Roosevelt said, things get worse and worse before they get better and better, but you got to level with the American people, shoot from the shoulder. There's never been a time they've not been able to step up. This president should step down.
Ooh, that was a good one. So last night there was a town hall in Scranton, or just outside of Scranton, with Joe Biden. Donald Trump tried to compete for airtime by doing some dog and pony show, lying, fire hose of lies in a small town in Wisconsin, because he's losing. He's losing badly. All the polling shows that he is losing by 8 points, 7 points, 10 points. I mean, it's unbelievable. So Joe Biden had his chance at a town hall last night, And he is literally emotional and angry. He's on the verge of tears whenever he talks about this response and this destruction of things like the CDC, things like the National Institutes of Health. Remember, Joe Biden was the person who fought for and won an enormous amount of investment into a cancer moonshot research and development effort that has helped us identify genes in cancers so that the gene can be identified and therefore targeted. You see all these new therapies, biologic therapies. You see all these new drugs that, you can live longer, or this is for people with metastatic breast cancer, or this is for people with lung cancer to help them live longer. And these first tests that you're supposed to ask for when you get a cancer diagnosis so that they can identify the genetic makeup of the tumor. I mean, that's what Joe Biden has been about with regard to, curing disease. As far as providing health insurance, we got Obamacare. It insured almost 20 million people. Now you've got people who are losing their employer-based insurance because they lost their jobs. We're now seeing that 60% of the small businesses that closed are closed permanently because of this president's desire to ignore COVID for his own benefit. That's why everybody is so livid. That's why all these people are quitting. That's why all these people are making ads. That's why all these people are being interviewed and spoken to on news outlets that are honest about all these people. The Dan Coates of the world. Dan Coates, yesterday, Dan Coates wrote a op-ed piece in the New York Times telling everybody, asking the question in the first paragraph, whether or not America can survive another term of Donald Trump. Just in the first paragraph. And Dan Coates, as you know, is a dyed-in-the-wool Republican from Indiana. He was a senator before he was brought into the Trump administration. And he said, we hear often that the November election is the most consequential in our lifetime. But the importance of the election is not just which candidate or which party wins. Voters face the question of whether the American democratic experiment, one of the boldest political innovations in human history, will survive. How many people who worked around Donald Trump, who have observed Donald Trump, who have tape recorded Donald Trump, have to speak out about what a danger he is to democracy itself? He calls for an election commission to be set up, nonpartisan or bipartisan, actually, to be set up outside of any political wheelhouse to monitor elections in the United States. In the United States of America. I mean, it's so bizarre. And why would that be? Well, Biden just got his first national security briefing since he's been vice president. And he knows what Christopher Wray knows. Obviously, Chad didn't show up. He didn't want to show up, and he didn't want to, recognize a lawfully issued congressional subpoena because they have such disdain for the law and for order. All right. But Christopher Wray testified yesterday the Russians are actively involved in these elections.
Can you tell me if, as of this date, you have information that Russia is trying to influence the election for 2020?
Yes, I think the intelligence community's consensus is that Russia continues to try to influence our elections, primarily through what we would call malign foreign influence, as opposed to what we saw in 2016, where there was also an effort to target election infrastructure, cyber targeting. We have not seen that second part yet this year or this cycle, but we certainly have seen very active efforts by the Russians to influence our election in 2020 through what I would call more the malign foreign influence side of things. Social media, use of proxies, state media, online journals, et cetera, in effort to both sow divisiveness and discord. And I think the intelligence community has assessed this publicly, primarily to denigrate Vice President Biden and what the Russians see as kind of an anti-Russian establishment. That's essentially what we're seeing in 2020.
It's the head of the FBI, Trump's hand-picked head of the FBI. Yeah, they're trying to denigrate Biden, the Russians are. And they've, this guy, Durkash, has given, bogus information to senators, in the United States Senate. And quite frankly, you got some lunatic, fringy senators who are willing to take that information, which is bogus, which was gotten by Rudy Giuliani and a guy named Victor Durkash, who is a Russian intelligence officer, and, present it to the American people as if it's, true and real. This is just so crazy. This is just nutbaggery. And obviously, Donald Trump just loves Vlad. He loves him because Vlad has all the money. Russians are so poor. I've been there. It's so decrepit. It's so, people are, the apartments, the Stalin era apartments, they're still there with like 3 and 4 families living in each apartment. And they're these ugly sort of projects that are everywhere. That's how people live. Terrified to speak up, terrified to speak out. You can't even make music that's revolutionary or, questions the dear leader. You know what happens. People get arrested or poisoned or maligned or excommunicated from their ability to make a living, or maybe if they're lucky enough, they can actually leave. They can sneak out of the country, and then Vlad will hunt you down, and he'll put Novichok on your doorknob or in your tea and kill you. Trump loves that, and he loves the hermit nation and the prison planet that is North Korea. He loves it. He loves it, and he loves the white supremacy and the autocratic nature of Viktor Orban's Hungary. He loves it. He wants that for himself. You disgust him.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
What Bill Barr recently said is outrageous. That is like slavery. We're taking away freedom. I would tell you what takes away your freedom. What takes away your freedom is not being able to see your kid, not being able to go to the football game or baseball game, not being able to see your mom or dad sick in the hospital, not being able to do the things. That's what costs our freedom. And it's been the failure of this president to deal with this virus. And he knew about it. He knew the detail of it. He knew it in clear terms. Imagine had he at the State of the Union stood up and said, when back in January I wrote an article for USA Today saying, we've got a pandemic, we got a real problem. Imagine if he had said something. How many more people would be alive?
It's a good question. We don't know how many people more would be alive. We do know that there's almost 200,000 that we know of that are dead. Some, trackers have it over 200,000 at this point, but I use, Johns Hopkins numbers, and we're about to hit 200,000 dead Americans for mismanagement at the highest level of government to give truthful information to the American people, because he didn't want to panic. And of course, the panic was on Wall Street. That's the panic he didn't want. The only thing Americans do when we get bad news, toilet paper. Yes, we panic and go buy entirely too much toilet paper, and we'll cut a bitch to get it. That's us. That's who we are. That's the truth. Other than that, Americans do not panic. If somebody is telling them You can prevent this disease from spreading by wearing a simple cloth mask or a bandana or a surgical mask. You don't need one of these, N95 particulate masks necessarily. But you do need to stop the spread of this virus, which is airborne, by keeping your droplets to yourself. And that will have a great... People would do it. They would still panic and buy toilet paper, but they would also cover their faces. Instead, he's turned it into some political, ridiculous, crazy-ass thing that if you support him, you cannot wear a mask. What the stupidity of that. The stupidity of it.
The comments by the Attorney General contribute to people, encourage people not to wear masks.
Sure, quite frankly, they're sick.
Yeah.
Think about it. Did you ever think, any of you, you'd hear Attorney General say that following the recommendations of the scientific community to save your and other people's lives is equivalent to slavery? People being put in chains. You lost your freedom because he didn't act. The freedom to go to that ball game, the freedom of your kid to go to school, the freedom to see your mom or dad in the hospital, the freedom just to walk around your neighborhood because of failure to act responsibly. Anderson, I've been doing this a long time. I never, ever thought I would see such a thoroughly, totally irresponsible administration. It's one of the reasons why, if you take a look, the Pew Foundation poll, guess what? Russia, Putin, China, Xi Jinping are trusted by more of the people in the world than the President of the United States of America. And one of the reasons they cite is COVID.
Well, that's pretty freaking frightening. That's pretty freaking frightening. People trust the communist leader of China more than they trust the democratically elected president of the United States on COVID. Wow. Unacceptable. It's believable at this point, but it's unacceptable. Anybody that accepts that the president of the United States is disgusted by the American people, thinks COVID might be a good thing because he doesn't have to shake your disgusting hand at his off-the-chain rallies, and still supports this man who has the blood of more than 200,000 Americans on his hands because he was worried about a stock market crash more than he was worried about your small business going out of business, or more than he was worried about your kids being able to go to school this fall, or more than he was worried about the economy in the United States, or more than he was worried about people being able to put food on the table or to keep themselves healthy, is just unacceptable. And I know it's cognitive dissonance. He keeps telling you these lies. He keeps repeating the big lie over and over, a la Stalin. He keeps saying, if the lie is very, very big, people won't think you have the nerve to tell it, let alone tell it over and over again. So make your lie really big. Make it about life and death and keep telling it. Then when people hear the truth, get the truth, read the truth, understand the truth, it creates this cognitive dissonance in their head where, no, that can't be right because he's been telling me a lie over and over and over again, and I believe him. So I cannot believe you when you tell the truth. I can't believe the numbers when the numbers show 200,000 people are dead. I have to say it's a hoax. I have to say it's a deep state plot. I have to say he did the very best he could. I have to say masks are slavery. I have to say whatever, because you've been told lies so big, so often, that you think, my God, nobody would have the nerve to tell a lie that big that often, but he does. And now we can see he's lying about a vaccine. Right now. I'm not playing it. He's lying about masks and their utility. He lied about knowing when the virus was airborne. He lied about knowing that if it gets the wrong person, you're done for. He lied about it all. He told the truth to Bob Woodward on tape, but he lied to us over and over and over, and he's still lying to us. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Could you see a scenario where you downplayed critical information so as not to cause panic?
Not at all. The idea that you're going to not tell people what you've been told, that this virus is incredibly contagious, 7 times more contagious than the flu. You breathe the air, you get it sucked into your lungs. What has he done? Imagine, and by the way, Columbia University Medical School pointed out, if he had just acted 1 week earlier, he would have saved 37,000 lives. All the way back, and I was on one of your shows, all the way back in March, I was calling for the need for us to have masks, have the president stand and tell us what's going on. But he knew it. He knew it and did nothing. It's close to criminal.
It's close to criminal. What is the definition of negligent homicide? I think if you look up Donald Trump in the dictionary, see what I mean? Anthony Fauci had to go on MSNBC last night and say masks work, please wear them, again and again and again and again. And again and again and again and again.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Mr. President, welcome home. And right now I do work in a cancer center in the area. I make under $15 an hour.
Oh.
During these COVID times, unfortunately, I had to open a credit card with 25% interest just to cover my groceries. I'm barely making ends meet. Receive no hazard pay, no raise. I'm struggling not only mentally, but financially. I look up to you, and as a middle-class healthcare worker, do you have any plans to stand up for us healthcare workers?
Absolutely. And the idea you're not making a minimum of $15 an hour is just wrong. Wrong. No one should have to work 2 jobs to be able to get out of poverty. You're busting your neck, and what you're doing is you're saving people's lives.
Exactly.
You're helping them, and you're risking your own in this moment of COVID. The reason I'm running is because, look, the interesting thing for me is I view I really do view this campaign as a campaign between Scranton and Park Avenue. And I really mean it because, you know, the way we were raised up here in this area, awful lot of hard-working people busted their neck. All they asked for is a shot, just a shot. All that Trump can see from Park Avenue is Wall Street. All he thinks about is the stock market and telling, we're going to do all right. Everybody owns stock. How many of you all own stock in Scranton? In my neighborhood in Scranton, not a whole lot of people own stock. No. And so we have to make sure that healthcare workers are paid and paid a decent wage. And $15 an hour isn't enough for a healthcare worker.
I would rather see somebody like that be in charge at a time of incredible disease, you know, just some, I mean, honestly. And he was asked about, healthcare itself. And like I told you, he wants a public option.
My mother was diagnosed with multiple myeloma 2 years ago at the age of 66. The cost of her care has been astronomical. However, my family has been fortunate that both she and my father had long careers at good companies that afforded them the opportunity to save for retirement, which is helping to pay for her care. Mr. Vice President, what is your plan to make health care affordable so Americans don't need to drain their savings when care is necessary?
First of all, in the middle of this pandemic, what's the president doing? He's in federal court, trying to do away with the Affordable Care Act. 100 million people with pre-existing conditions like your mom would not have to pay more for their insurance under now. But guess what happens if in fact, he wins? That's number one. Number two, What I would do is make sure that we reinstate the Affordable Care Act, number one, and add a public option to that Affordable Care Act so that nobody in the United States of America would go without being able to be covered for what they need. My son died of cancer. He came home from Iraq, and I have to tell you, it really, really offended me when he volunteered to go there for a year, and he came home because of with stage 4 glioblastoma. And the president referred to guys like my son. He won the Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal, referred to them as losers. Losers. Talk about losers.
Quite a difference. And Trump was standing on that stage in Wisconsin last night saying, hey, paper ballots, they're frauds, and all these, and just denigrating the whole process of voting, confusing people, sending out mixed messages, just doing, and as he's on the stage, he's got to have known that last night a district court judge in Washington State was responding to a lawsuit brought by 14 states. 14 states challenged Louis DeJoy's changes at the Postal Service. And the judge in that case actually said the states have proven that everything that Louis DeJoy did to the Postal Service was for political means, was for a political end. It was designed to disenfranchise people, and the states, this is the exact quote from the U.S. District Court judge for the Eastern District of Washington, Stanley Bastian. He's the chief judge. He delivered the opinion. So while Donald Trump is bamboozling people into not trusting the election because he knows he's going to lose, and his theory, it's the same as he did in 2016. If he loses, it was rigged. If he wins, it wasn't, right? It's the same thing. The Chief Justice of the U.S. District Court said, the states have demonstrated that the defendants are involved in a politically motivated attack on the efficiency of the Postal Service. They have also demonstrated that this attack on the Postal Service is likely to irreparably harm the state's ability to administer the 2020 general election. Now, all of these talking points about not trusting the ballots and paper is no good and you shouldn't, vote on paper in an absentee or, a mail-in ballot. The paper is the best, just so you know, because you can always recount paper. That's just a fact. But the reason why he's doing it is because these are Russian talking points. I mean, the intelligence community has put out the Russian talking points about creating distrust for mail-in ballots specifically and about the distrust for paper ballots specifically. And Donald Trump is repeating it endlessly in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of 200,000 people dead, in the middle of a crashing economy. I mean, it's just, it's unacceptable. Jacqueline in California.
Hi, Randy. I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been listening to you for a long time.
You have that little girl voice. You sound like you're 15.
I know. And I'm 50 years old. It just, I can't get rid of it.
It's adorable. It's very cute.
Anyway.
Do people still ask to speak to your mother?
No, but I do have to express my age, or I make it a joke a lot when I call people.
Yeah.
I'm really not a little kid, But anyway, I love you. You are so knowledgeable. I've been, listening to you since Obama, so not that long, but I've learned so much from you. I'm glad you're back. And you also turned me on to Stephanie because she was crying on your show one day.
Oh, yeah.
When you left.
Right.
And I was like, I finally found her, and now she's gone. So. Anyway, I just wanted to, I was calling about one thing. But as you were talking about the whole COVID and the amount of deaths, I have to tell you, there is a lot of indirect deaths that happened as well. My father and my uncle passed away a few months ago, and my dad, living out in Nevada in kind of a rural type area.
We're running up against a break.
I'm sorry?
Hold on.
Okay.
All right. I think I just dropped. Whoops.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I apologize, Jacqueline. Thank you for calling back. I hung up on you.
Hi, that's okay. I couldn't hear the music. No problem.
Okay.
So, anyway, all I wanted to say was there's a lot of people that died indirectly from COVID as well, like my father, who was in a rural area of Nevada, and he was sick for a while, and then they didn't realize how bad it was, obviously, and so they kept putting off his doctor's appointment. By the time he got in, it was too late. His heart was already, gone to the point where there was nothing we could do for him and had to go through hospice and all of that. So,
did he test positive for COVID?
You know, I was so absorbed in my own grief that I never did that. But Randi, I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Because why did his heart, he was 83 or 84, but, the way his heart condition went from 0 to 100 makes me wonder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how many other people are really out there that have a similar story, because you couldn't get into a doctor because everything was shut down unless you had COVID or they thought you were dying, that got turned away.
Yeah, and I worried about people who were going through cancer treatments like chemotherapy or radiation, which you have to have every single day, right? And how they couldn't get care because everybody was told to not see patients. It was an amazing, all avoidable. That's the all avoidable.
Right. So I think the count is so much higher than that's even out there. Not only because of the cover up and Florida not really sharing and all this other stuff. All this other nonsense. There are people that literally couldn't get to see a doctor to avoid dying.
And I also think about the people who had to die alone without seeing their families. There were. I just went through it with Howard. He broke his pelvis. Because Howard is calamity. That's what we call him in our family, calamity. Really, it's amazing. But anyway, when they took him into the hospital because he refused to go because now people are afraid to go right. He had actually a bleed inside, and he bled so much that it moved his bladder. This is a little graphic, but
oh my God.
Right, and so they took him into the hospital, to monitor him to make sure they stopped the bleeding. Well, I wasn't allowed in there. And the woman literally says to me, kiss him goodbye because you can't come in. And it's the most bizarre feeling in the world that you can't be with your person. You can't be there.
And that's why I had to do hospice so we could even be with him.
Oh, it's just
because he would have just sat there in the hospital till he died.
Unreal.
Yeah, sad. Anyway, one more quick thing, if I could.
Go ahead.
When you're talking about MSNBC and Dr. Fauci has to go on there, I watch MSNBC and CNN every night. I'm, a diehard. But at the end of the day, they're talking to people like me who already get it. It's Fox News that is the problem, and Dr. Fauci needs to go there. Or you know what I mean? It's all the brainwashed people like my dad who died and my brother-in-law that I'm dealing with. They don't watch anything else. They don't know anything else.
Well, look, the thing that I really want people to do, really truly want people to do, is read a newspaper. That's what I really want people to do. When you look at the viewership, when you look
I thought about sending over, newspapers to him, but he's not going to read it.
Who?
They're just gone. Yeah.
Who?
my brother-in-law and my dad.
Yeah,
but they're just gone.
Well, that's the problem. The problem is that people do not read newspapers. When you look at the viewership for cable news, all right, network news, ABC, NBC proper, if you will, CBS, they have multiple, like tens of millions of people, okay, 8 to 10 to 12 million people watching those newscasts. When we start talking about cable news, corporate news, cable news, which look, CNN is my pick only because they have global coverage. They have more reporters in localities. They can, actually talk to people who are going through this or that. So that's where I go. But honestly, only about 3 million people each evening are watching CNN. Only about 3 million people are watching MSNBC, and only about 3 million people are watching Fox News. When they declare their supremacy in the ratings, you're literally talking about a difference of like a couple of 100,000 people watched Fox over this one or that one. That's the big, horse race. It's the audiences for cable news are really not as influential as you think they are. Yes, Fox is a propaganda outlet. There is no question. OAN is even worse than they are. The problem Americans have in knowing what's really going on in the world and orienting themselves to a reality, to true facts, is they don't read a newspaper. Yesterday I was some troll was hounding me, and I always engage. I just do, because I figure even if I could just do one at a time and show them a newspaper, right? Just show them a newspaper. So this troll was telling me something about, how great Trump is and da-da-da-da. And I asked him, why is everybody quitting? Well, who's quitting? I mean, unaware that all these people, Dan Coates and Rex Tillerson called him an effing moron, whatever, that he lied to Bob Woodward, or that he told the truth to Bob Woodward, he's been lying to you, whatever. So I said, oh, well, the right-hand person for Mike Pence from the coronavirus task force just quit. And he's like, No, that didn't happen. So I send him a Washington Post article, and he goes, I thought you had more information than the failing Washington Post. So I said to him, so are you telling me Olivia Troy didn't quit? No, I'm not saying she didn't quit. And that was the end of the conversation, because when you confront them with reality, it creates this trouble in their brain because they've been lied to so hard and so heavy. But what's going on is going on Facebook. What's going on is going on Twitter. What's going on is going on Instagram. Truly. What's going on is a disinformation campaign that is on social media in the biggest way you could possibly imagine. And people do not read newspapers. And so whoever gets hold of a troll or a wannabe is what I call them, because they want to believe, that's who gets them. That's who gets them. It's really obscene. That's why when Chris Wray tells you that the effort is really happening, Russia is taking advantage of a lot of seriously connected people who don't read anything. They don't read books. They don't read newspapers. They only read, I know it's more than 140 characters now, but they only read 280 characters or whatever it is. Or they're only living on Instagram. And Russia knows where to get them. They know where to strike. They know where to. And they're meme wars. They're literally photographs. And that's what they do. I mean, it's so bad. It's so dangerous. It's so prevalent. It's like everywhere. And people are willing to die for this man because they cannot not believe him at this point. They're too invested. And that's why, truly, the conclusion has to be save who you can. Educate who you can. I mean, I'm an optimist. I always believe there's a chance to tell somebody something or to show somebody something, which is more important. I always believe that. It's just how I'm built, but, honestly. India in Syracuse. Hi, India.
Good afternoon, Randy. How are you today?
Okay, you'll have the last word. You have about a minute and a half.
Alrighty, so right quick. What we seeing Donald Trump should not be new to us, because the mentality that he has, the sense of entitlement, is what a lot of white America has seen in their own families with the men in their families. That is one. Two, I really hope that America takes this time to think about investing and turning their heads to the independent politicians, because those are going to be the ones who's going to implement real change. The Democrats and the Republicans, the Democrats will not allow an independent party.
No, that's the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't allow a third party. That is not a party that prevents other parties. It's the Constitution. The Electoral College prevents a third party. But I take your meaning. I understand what you're saying. But we get two choices. Make one.